My cousin kept dropping her kids off without warning. So I installed a Ring doorbell and started ignoring the door she tested. "Why aren't you answering?" I replied. "Because you didn't ask first." Context: I'm 41 and live just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a single mom with 2 kids, 12 and 9. My life is busy but manageable. Or at least it was before my cousin, Layla, decided I was her free on-demand babysitter. Layla is my mom's sister's kid. We were pretty close growing up, but while I grew up, got a stable job and focused on raising my kids, Layla has been bouncing from one chaotic situation to the next. She had 3 kids with her ex, a guy who was more interested in beer and video games than being a dad. After they split, she moved back into our hometown. That's when my life started to get a lot more complicated. At first I didn't mind helping her out. She had it rough, and I get it. Being a single mom is hard. She'd ask me to watch the kids so she could go to job interviews, and I said yes. She'd come over for dinner sometimes, and I'd send her home with leftovers. The emergencies started coming more often, and soon it wasn't just emergencies anymore. Began innocently enough. She'd text me early in the morning saying, "Hey, I have a doctor's appointment. Can you watch the kids for an hour?" I'd say yes, no big deal. Then it turned into last-minute texts about errands she needed to run, but she wouldn't come back for hours. One time she dropped them off just for a little bit and didn't come back until 9 p.m. I had to feed them, bathe them, and get them ready for bed. My own kids were asking me, "Why are they always here?" I should have set boundaries earlier, but I kept letting it slide. I told myself she was struggling, that she just needed some time to get on her feet, but deep down, I knew what was happening. She wasn't trying to get her life together. She was dumping her responsibilities on me because it was easier than dealing with them herself. The last straw came on a Wednesday afternoon in April. I'd just come home from work. I was exhausted. My boss had been breathing down my neck all day, and I had a massive headache. My kids were sitting at the kitchen table doing their homework. I was finally taking a minute to breathe. I had a cup of coffee in my hand and was about to sit down when the doorbell rang. It was Layla. She was standing there with her toddler on her hip, and the other 2 kids already running wild in my front yard. She looked at me and said, "I have a thing I need to do. I'll be back in a couple of hours." That was it. No explanation, no asking if I was busy, just "I have a thing." I stood there, stunned. Before I could say anything, she handed me the toddler and turned around, heading back to her car. Called after her, but she didn't stop. She just waved over her shoulder like this was completely normal. Her kids ran past me into the house, and I just stood there in disbelief. My coffee went cold while I tried to process what had just happened. That night, after wrangling 5 kids all evening, I sat down at my computer. I was angry, not just at her, but at myself. How would I let it get this far? I had my own kids to take care of. I had my own life. Why was I letting her treat me like a doormat? I started reading articles about boundaries. I ended up on Reddit scrolling through threads about toxic family members. And one comment stuck out to me. "You have to stop saying yes if they'll keep taking advantage of you." That's when I decided enough was enough. The next morning I ordered a Ring doorbell. It arrived 2 days later, and I installed it that weekend. I didn't tell Layla about it. I wanted to see how long it would take her to show up unannounced again. The first time Layla showed up after I installed the Ring doorbell was the following Tuesday. It was just after 5:00 p.m. and I was still in my work clothes trying to get dinner ready while my kids bickered over who got the last bag of chips. The doorbell chimed, and my phone lit up with the Ring notification. I opened the app and there she was standing at my front door. She wasn't alone. Her 3 kids were with her. One of them holding a plastic grocery bag that looked like it was stuffed with clothes. I didn't answer the door. I didn't even move. I just watched as she knocked, then knocked again. Harder this time. "I know you're home," she yelled, leaning into the door like she was trying to see through it. "Your car's in the driveway." She knocked again. One of her kids started whining. "Mom, I'm hungry." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Layla. "Why aren't you answering? I can see your living room light on." I didn't reply. Instead, I muted my phone, walked back into the kitchen and stirred the spaghetti sauce like nothing was happening. My heart was pounding though. I wasn't used to ignoring people like that, especially family, but I was determined to stand my ground. Layla stayed on the porch for a good 10 minutes, pacing back and forth. She tried calling me, but I let it go to voicemail. Finally, she stumped back to her car, yelling at her kids to get in the damn car. I felt a small flicker of guilt, but I pushed it down. That night, she sent me a string of texts. "The hell, Rachel, why didn't you answer? I needed you to watch the kids for a couple hours. It's not a big deal. Are you mad at me or something? I'm your cousin. You're supposed to help family." I didn't respond to any of them. The next morning, she called me while I was at work. I let it ring out, and she left a voicemail that was half angry, half fake sweet. She said she just needed to talk, and that I was being really dramatic. She added, "If you're mad, just say so. Don't play these games." When I didn't reply, she took things up a notch. She called my mom. I should have seen that coming. My mom has a soft spot for Layla. When Layla spun her version of events, my mom called me upset. Rachel, why didn't you answer the door? Layla said she was in a tough spot yesterday. How hard things are for her. I know. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Layla doesn't ask me to help her. She just shows up and expects me to drop everything. I have my own kids to take care of. She's family. My mom said like that explained everything. Exactly. She's family. Which means she should respect me enough to ask instead of treating me like a free babysitter. I can't keep doing this, Mom, my mom sighed. And I could tell she didn't agree with me. But for once I didn't back down. A few days went by and I thought maybe Layla had gotten the hint. I was wrong. The following Saturday she showed up again. This time she rang the bell and knocked at the same time, like she was trying to force me to open the door. I pulled up the Ring app on my phone and saw her standing there with her arms crossed, her kids climbing all over my porch. When I didn't answer, she stepped back and started yelling, Rachel, I know you're in there. You can't just ignore me like this. I'm your cousin. Open the door. My phone buzzed again. Another text. This is ridiculous. I need you to take the kids for a few hours. I'll explain later. I didn't reply. After about 15 minutes she finally left. I thought that was the end of it. But later that evening, I got another text from her. This one was different. I don't know what your problem is. But if you're not going to help me, I'll find someone who will. Don't expect me to be there for you when you need something. I stared at the message for a long time. Couldn't believe how entitled she was acting. She wasn't just upset that I said no. She was trying to guilt me into caving, but I didn't cave. A week went by. And I didn't hear from her. Then 2 weeks I thought maybe she'd finally backed off. But one evening as I was leaving work, my phone rang. It was Lala's oldest son. Aunt Rachel, can you come pick us up? Mom's not here, and we don't know what to do. My stomach dropped. Where are you? He gave me the address. It was a rundown apartment complex on the other side of town, in an area I wasn't familiar with. I asked him to stay put and drove over as fast as I could. When I got there, I found the kids sitting on the curb looking scared and cold. They told me Layla had dropped them off with a friend hours ago and never came back. The friend got tired of waiting and told them to leave. I was furious, not at the kids. They were innocent in all this. At Layla couldn't believe she would just abandon her kids like that. Took them back to my house and fed them dinner. While they ate, I called Layla. She didn't answer. I called again and again. Finally she picked up on the fourth try, sounding annoyed. Do you want, Rachel? I'm busy. Your kids were sitting on a curb because you didn't come back for them. I yelled. The hell is wrong with you? She laughed. Actually laughed. Calm down, they're fine. Aren't you so dramatic, Layla? This isn't okay. You can't just dump your kids on people and disappear. She hung up on me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about boundaries anymore. Layla wasn't just irresponsible. She was neglectful. And if she didn't change, her kids were the ones who would suffer. After that night, I knew I couldn't keep ignoring what was happening. Layla wasn't just taking advantage of me. She was failing her kids as angry as I was at her. Couldn't let those kids suffer because of her selfishness. They deserved better. I spent the next few days thinking about what to do. Couldn't confront her directly anymore. She would just brush me off. Like always, I decided to go about things differently. If she wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. First, I kept documenting everything, every unannounced drop-off. Every time she left her kids with me for hours without a word, every incident like the one at the curb, I wrote it all down, saved screenshots of her texts, and even downloaded the footage from the Ring doorbell of her yelling and dropping her kids off. I didn't know if I'd need it, but I wanted to be ready. Then called her kids' school. I wasn't sure if it was my place, but I had to know if they were okay. What I found out shocked me. Layla had missed several meetings with their teachers. Her youngest had been late to school almost every day. Her middle child had been acting out in class. The school counselor even mentioned that the kids often came to school hungry. It was heartbreaking. It only made me more determined to put an end to this. The next time Layla tried to drop her kids off at my house, I didn't just ignore her. I called the police. She showed up on a Saturday morning, banging on my door and shouting, Rachel, open up, I'm running late. I pulled up the Ring app and watched as she stomped around on my porch. Her kids looking confused and scared. I felt bad for them. But I knew this was the only way to stop her. Called 911 and calmly explained the situation. My cousin is here trying to leave her kids with me without my consent. She does this all the time, and I can't handle it anymore. Can you send someone to help? The operator assured me someone was on the way. I sat by the window and waited, my heart racing. When the police arrived, Layla looked completely shocked. At first she tried to act like everything was fine. It's just a misunderstanding, she said, laughing nervously. We're family. The officer wasn't buying it. I showed him the footage from the Ring doorbell and explained everything. How she constantly left her kids without asking, how she abandoned them at random places, and how she refused to take responsibility. Layla's smile disappeared fast. She started yelling, saying I was making her look bad, that I was out to get her. The officer cut her off and told her she needed to stay and talk to CPS. That's right. I'd called Child Protective Services earlier that week and told them everything. I gave them all the proof I had, and they promised to investigate. The officer called them from my driveway. And within an hour, caseworkers showed up. Layla tried to sweet-talk her way out of it, but the caseworker wasn't having it. She asked Layla a lot of questions. Every time Layla lied or tried to dodge, I stepped in with proof. I showed the texts, the videos, even the notes from the school counselor. By the end of it, Layla was in tears. She begged me to take the kids just for a little while, but I said no. Told her, you need to figure this out, Layla. I'm done cleaning up your messes. CPS didn't take the kids away that day, but they opened a case and assigned a social worker to monitor her. They also required her to attend parenting classes and prove she could provide a safe, stable environment. If she didn't, they said they'd step in. For a while, Layla was furious with me. She told everyone in the family that I'd ruined her life, that I was out to get her. But when the truth came out that she had been neglecting her kids, most people sided with me. Even my mom, who was always soft on Layla, admitted that I'd done the right thing. The best part, Layla couldn't just dump her kids on me anymore. CPS required her to get approval from them before leaving the kids with anyone. They made it clear that if she tried to pull any stunts, there would be consequences. Over time, things started to change. Layla begrudgingly went to the parenting classes. And from what I've heard, she's trying to be more present for her kids. I don't know if she'll ever completely change, but at least now she knows she can't walk all over me. As for me, I'm finally free. My house is quiet again. Kids are happy, and I don't jump every time the doorbell rings. The next time someone tries to guilt trip me with, but we're family. I'll remember this. Family doesn't mean sacrificing your peace for someone who refuses to respect you.